Welcome, Adrian Owen. Thank you so much for jumping on board with us to talk about your career and time at Aberavon, but ultimately to speak about your all-time greatest 15 that played for Aberavon as well. So thanks for joining us. First and foremost, let's get straight into it. You're banned for life from the rugby field, but let's get into the first story, really. Your second game, I heard you were suspended, first of all. Sent off straight away.
Well,
correct me.
We played against Llanelli, and I think it was either Evan Jenkins was having a fight with Richie, and I played by the dictum that if anybody was having a go in your side, you just joined in. So I ran a few yards and I joined in, and Clive Nolan said, "You may leave the field," and that that was about my first or second game of rugby down in Aberavon, and I thought I would have learned from that, but I really didn't. And people thought I had a bit of a hot head, and I suppose I did play in the day. And I wish I hadn't, to be honest with you. I'd probably played a lot more games.
Well, let's talk about, let's describe yourself. What would you say in 3 words, what you were like as a player?
Uncompromising. Strong and stupid.
Let's talk more about the let's talk more about the last one there. Stupid. I guess it's something to do with you being carded a lot, I guess.
Well, you see, it's like I never seemed to have learned when I was playing, and I thought, at the time I did actually learn to meditate during my time after Aberavon, because I thought that this would help my temper, and it did. I learned TM, Transcendental Meditation, and it definitely cooled me down.
That's interesting.
But and I still do it actually. I do it twice a day, and it's a tremendous relaxation.
Yeah, I've tried to meditate and do stuff like that, some more mindfulness techniques. I'm trying to get there, but I'm not quite getting there with the meditation stuff yet. But I am trying, so it's good stuff. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Let's talk about more of the positive sides then of you playing for Aberavon. The stories that I've heard about you from your fellow teammates, you are described as like a true warrior, true inspiration as a leader, as a captain. Would you say that? Well, that's the kind words people are saying about you. Would you say that's a fair reflection of how you were in terms of your speeches as well? They said that you were quite motivating for a game and things like that. So can you enlighten us there at all?
Well, I feel quite humbled by what you're saying. It's lovely to have been thought of like that. I did have a tremendous mentor in Clive Shell, who was possibly the greatest motivator I've ever come across prior to a game. And he taught me a lot about, there are certain things you can do with teams, and sometimes you can actually wind them up too much. And possibly that was one of my problems as regards getting sent off, as we just spoke about. I tended to lead from the front, and I wouldn't expect anybody else to do what I didn't do. Yeah. I don't mean in that it was never a bully in that type of sense of the word, but you had to front up in those days. If you didn't front up, you were just trodden on. And it was I had some tremendous teachers down there, and the people prior to me, Billy Mayweather, probably my idol. This is a funny story. I was learning the lineouts, and Billy James said to me, "Look, just watch Tal." Tal is Billy's nickname. See, so I said, Billy said, "Watch Tal." So we were playing Cardiff, and Billy was jumping against a fella called Chris. He was a Greek guy. Oh, I can't remember his second name. Chris. Well, it'll come to me. Anyway, he was gigantic, and he was like a Greek god. He was a Greek name as well. And the first line out, ball came in, and he took it. Not Billy, but the Cardiff player took it, and I looked at Billy James, who threw the ball in, and I just went, Yeah. What am I going to learn from you? And he said, well, and Billy went. So we carried on. Next line out. The ball came in, and Billy had the guy by the throat, and he was looking at his teeth.
What?
And he said, "Lovely set of teeth, boy. Make sure you keep them." And Billy went, "That's the way to jump." And Billy James, though, that's the way to jump. And it's, it was a big lesson in those days. You had to front up because there was no lifting. You either took a ball or you got smacked in the mouth, and that was it.
I guess it reflects what you're saying there. You were clubman twice on the bounce, when you in the early 80s?
Yeah, clubman. Yeah, I'm player.
Yeah, so obviously I don't know who chose clubman the awards back then. Do you remember? Was it the players or was it like more supporters based then? That award.
I think the clubman was players, and the supporters did player. And John Dick had a lot to say about that, because we're from the same area, and we weren't particularly rich. I mean this, from up here, and I didn't have a car till I used to hitchhike I had a car in 81. So from 76 to 81, I used to hitchhike back and forth to Aberavon, either over the Bulch or from, when I was in college, from Barry to Aberavon. And that was twice a week. And I had some amazing lifts. I remember having a lift once with a ballet dancer. And she was wearing a tutu she was going to ballet and I was going to play rugby. And I had a lift with a vicar who loved rugby and enjoyed talking about fighting. It was just, and I did give a lift on the A48. And mind you, it was hard work because you'd be stuck in a rain, just sitting on the side of the road.
I was going to say, off topic a little bit, how long would it take you to?
Hours,
man.
Hours, yeah. And that's why I think I had clubman. Because I deserved it. But I was on set like this. Oh man, Bach. It wasn't. They were hard days, and a lot of people gave me lifts. Mind you, I had a lot of mates who did give me lifts who was stuck, especially when you had a game and you had a lift in. And when Paul Knight came down, and Neil Hutchins, I managed to have lifts with them because they came down after me because they're from Croydon.
I love that story. That's good, that is. Just to go back, and I'll finish off on the sent-offs now. I would look at you then. Obviously, I didn't play with you, but a player like yourself who played in my era was Ian Moore. So he played on the front foot. He was my captain, and he wasn't a dirty player, but he was all go, and he never did anything that he wouldn't expect anyone else to do, and things like that. But you spoke about taking people to the edge and taking people. So would you say that? You enjoyed that in the game as well, just trying to make your opponents tip over, if that makes sense, and watching them crumble in front of you, and then you happen to pay the price for it afterwards.
I suppose I did, but there were times when you hit and hit is not put it the word, yeah. You came to a point where because you had this bravado and had to front up, then you would pretend as well to be more in control than you actually were, and less afraid than you actually. Because if anybody tells you at some point that they weren't, wow, this guy can do it, right? Then they're lying. And I remember playing against Sedge, Alan Davis, who was playing for Southwest Police, and I hit him as hard as I could because he kept on putting his arm across me when I was going to jump for the ball, and I couldn't get a line at ball. So, right, I went, you got to slam him now. And then I swung and I hit him. And like a cartoon punch. And I went, boing.
Oh, right, yeah.
And he looked at me and I went, oh, I'm staying away from that guy. Right, and he was a tough man. Alan Davis was a tough man. He played for Aberavon. See, Alan.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, and Southwest Police, and tough bloke.
I could definitely relate to you there about having a bravado that you have to try and keep up.
Yeah.
There's some times as well that I was scared. I remember having a similar story to you. I hit one guy walking across my ruck, and he didn't move, just didn't move. I thought, right, I'm staying absolutely clear from you again. You know, don't want to get anywhere near you. Yeah. Anyway, did you finish? You finished off playing for Pontypridd?
No, Treorchy.
Oh, Treorchy. Okay. But, so going back to the Pontypridd days, though. So you left Aberavon to go to Pontypridd?
No, Bridgend.
Bridgend.
I played for Bridgend. Played with. I made some friends there as well. Like Chris Callaghan, who played for Aberavon, and Glenn Webb, and John Dick was coaching. So I went down there. What was it was a bad move. My heart was in Aberavon, and to a certain degree, it always has been. And you know, I absolutely adore Aberavon. It's like I come from Treorchy, and I suppose that's my home club, and I support Treorchy. But as regards my playing, the fun and the intensity and the camaraderie was undeniably fantastic.
Yeah. Fantastic. A lot of people say that back in your days, and currently now, people, when they leave the club for whatever reason, they regret it. Not always a regret, of course, but that they wish they never left, because Aberavon had been such a good club to be part of, which is still exists now. That's yeah. Last question before we go into your 15. You were in the Welsh squad a couple of times, believe it. Just talk us a bit for that, because I don't think you, obviously, unfortunately, didn't get capped.
No. Well, I always think, Womrie never got capped, and as a lot of people didn't get capped, it's no big deal. It did hurt at the time, and it was devastating on certain ones, like the 87, because I was captain of possibles in a trial and didn't get it, and for the 87 World Cup, and I wanted to go for the World Cup, obviously, and disappointment was like a sledgehammer then, until you realise that life is much more important than rugby. And I carried that disappointment for a few years, and then Paul Knight, my mate, he was capped, right? Played prop for Aberavon, prop for Ponty, prop for Treorchy, played for the Barbars, played for Wales, and then he developed MS. Now that's a disappointment. That's a disappointment in life, and when you just can't. It's a joke, really, to be disappointed at not getting somewhere in rugby. And
yeah, no, I totally agree with you in reflection. But I guess I'm not speaking for you here, but at the time, when you are disappointed in rugby, it as you said, it's like a sledgehammer sometimes, isn't it? But then I guess you learn. Then I guess the more older and wiser you get, is there is more to life than rugby. And I look back and think, why was I so disappointed? Right. Okay. Let's get into the main feature of naming your ultimate Aberavon team. So, are you ready to go?
Yep.
Should we start a fullback? Where do you want to start? Fullback or?
I go fullback.
Fullback. Okay.
Yep.
Off we go.
So the team I played with, good fullbacks, great fullbacks. Phil Bessop, when I started. There was Kerry Coslet, there's Winford Lewis. A guy who was terrific on the speed was Andy Martin. But nevertheless, I'd have to go with Kerry Coslet's cousin, I think it was, and that was Kel Coslet.
Oh, yeah. Got you.
He went north in the end, but I saw him play a few times, and he was terrific. And of course, you had people like John Wheeler. Was it Wheeler? Was Wheeler fullback as well? I can't remember. But I'm going to go Kel Coslet on fullback, unless, and this is important, unless somebody was married to my goddaughter as James Hook. James, right? If James Hook played for I don't know how many times did he play?
I believe he played the once.
Now, does that qualify?
He played at 10, I believe, though.
But I wouldn't put him at 10. I wouldn't put him at 10. I'll tell you why later on. Not that they, because, well, I'd put him a fullback. And that's if I'm allowed that.
This is your team. You could do what you want. But he did play for Aberavon, but I believe it was only the once.
Okay, well, if he did, then James Hook is fullback.
He's going in, is he?
Yeah.
James Hook fullback. Okay, let's move on to your wings.
Les Key. One of my best mates, terrific handoff, tremendous defence, and a big bloke in his time. I love playing with him. We roamed together. I love him, basically, and I wouldn't pick anybody else. The other wing, Kevin James. There's a lot of good wingers. You got John Collins, you got Martin Thomas, you got, but I'd pick Kevin James on the other wing, who could run through a brick wall as well. And I remember being in the same squad as Kevin, and a guy never, that Daladak, he just didn't turn up for the session. And I asked, what are you doing? You could play for Wales, right? But Kevin was Kevin's man, and he went north after. So those were my two wings.
Days centres.
Right. Now then, one centre, I tell you what, I saw him play for Wales, Ian Hall. What a player. And strong, unbelievably strong. And it was like, if all he was playing, it gave it an extra buzz, He was a real tough, uncompromising centre as well. And the other centre, now there's been a lot of, at the time of that one season, Neil Hutchins was terrific, right? I don't think he ever hit the height after he left Aberavon. He had one or two great seasons in Aberavon, and then he left to play for Cardiff, and he just wasn't the same player. And it was because the outside half didn't feed him, right? And the best outside half I've ever played with, right, was John Bevan. And John Bevan fed him unbelievable balls. I'm talking about he was so unselfish, John Bevan, that he'd create things for other players, and he was fantastic. And at the time, I think there was tremendous outside half. You got Phil Bennett, with Di Richards, obviously John, and John was number one. It wasn't Phil Bennett, right? And Carwyn James played hell about Phil Bennett not actually being in the Welsh side. So that's how good Bevan was. So I think because of John Bevan feeding Neil Hutchins, I'd pick Neil Hutchins. Yeah.
Neil Hutchins and Ian Hall.
Yes.
Centres. Okay. I guess I'm assuming your outside half is already chosen, but
John Bevan. Yeah. And with equally magnificent. This is a difficult one because a great friend of mine is Ray Giles. But I'd put Shelley in. Motivator, leader, thinker, everything. And athlete. And sadly left us, same as John. Same as Neil. Yeah. And I didn't realize that till I just said those words, then they've all gone. Anyway, so Clive Shell I saw him beat Gareth Edwards a few times in games when they're playing together, and he was some player.
How good were those two together, Clive Shell and John Bevan?
I think they're the best.
Yeah.
I think they're the best. Think I can't see if anybody picks anybody else, I think it's wrong. I rub them off.
God, you're not right. I would have loved. There's people they talk so much about John Bevan and Clive Shell, and just try and put it into words. You know, I know it's hard, but why were they so good? Why do people say they were the best? As you said, you know?
Because they were team players, because they were team, and they had individual brilliance, and the timing and the way Shelley would feed back inside the back row if he felt he wasn't good to put it out to John, and the way John got the back line moving, and the way John tackled, and the size. John was a big bloke. John Bevan was a wide, squat bloke, and he was a handful. And I love I loved being with them. You know, it was inspirational, and it taught me what a player should be like, and how a back should work. I'm not, there were other good outside halves. I played with Mike Lewis and Bernard Thomas, but I really think there was only one player ever better than John Bevan, and that I think he's the best player that's ever been. That's Jonathan Davies.
Yeah. Okay. Jiffy.
Yeah, I think, but that's a different. I think it's a different. You know, I think when I played, well, I don't want to go on about somebody.
This is what it's there for. We want to gather your stories. So, please, if you've got something to share.
Jiffy was. I remember the first game. I'd never lost against Neath. Played 19 games against Neath, never lost a game. And then we played them in the semi-final of the Cup down in Bridgend, and there was this new guy called Jonathan Davis playing for Neath at outside half, and really the arrogance of myself thinking about, well, just grab him and rip him up, and just couldn't get near. You couldn't get it, and he knew as well. He knew, and he'd go like this. He'd like this, and then just I never ever tackled him. I played against him against Neath, when he played for Sneshley. I played against him when he played for Aberavon. I played against him when I played for Bridgend. I'd never gone near him, and also you knew he would actually be able to do things, and you'd know what he was going to do, and he couldn't do anything, and none of us could.
Wow.
None of us could.
That's how good he was.
I'm talking about playing. I'm talking about playing against Gareth Edwards, played against Barry John, played against Phil Bennett, played against Barry John. No. Di Richards, all these, but I know people think that Gareth Edwards was, but I think it was Jonathan Davis.
And for me, I've only seen highlights of what Jiffy could do, and he was.
But don't forget 2 codes as well.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I think you don't really appreciate how good he was. Well, certainly you're saying that, but I couldn't imagine. I would have loved to have played against him. I probably would have been in the same boat as you, not being able to get a hand on him as well. So.
And the funny thing was, he was like, he flagged me. He'd flag me and come.
Oh, so you do that whilst he's running past you with the ball?
Well, yes, he did it all and do it. Right, he was a wicked player, and I sing for Trocky Mill Voice Choir now. Well, not now, but when the lockdown will be over, hopefully we'll be together. And we were singing in Monaco, and Jiffy was the guest speaker out in this. It was a Welsh night down in Monaco, and the place is jam packed full of celebs and Shirley Bassey and all these other people. We were singing, and Jiffy was doing the afternoon speaking. And while I was on stage, the guy next to me, Phil Smith, he taps me. He goes like this in the middle of a song, right? So I don't take any notice, and then he does it again at the end of the song. So I went like this. What do you want? and he went like this, Jiffy, and he points like this. So I looked down there, and Jiffy's like this, flagging me from the.
That's brilliant.
Exactly, we got bladdered in, and there's a place, there's a man cave, Prince Albert's man cave. You shouldn't have seen anything like in your life. Jimi Hendrix's guitar, Jim Morrison's. I don't know what he had a Jim Morrison. Jim Morrison, the Doors. Ronaldo's shirts, Messi's shirts. It was just unbelievable in this place. Anyway, I digress.
That's a funny story, but okay, that's the back line done. Let's move on to the powerhouse, the pack. Do you want to start at prop or?
Yeah, start at prop.
Yeah, okay. Off you go, loose head.
Clive Williams.
Ah, yes, Clive.
Yeah. All right. Although Paul's a great friend of mine, Paul was tremendously strong, but Clive had strength and immense strength, and natural strength, and a lovely bloke. Both, I tend to mate.
Choose your words carefully.
Props. a lot of good mates of mine are props. And I got to mention somebody who I adored as well, who died in the early 80s, was Barry Lewis. I'm not picking Barry, but I think he would have been up there. Barry Lewis was a tremendous prop and a tremendous man. So Clive Williams,
okay,
one prop, and John Richardson as the other prop. I know that they both, in effect, they cancelled each other out because they both wanted to play loose. But I played John tight, and I'd have played. And there were other, obviously others, they were tremendous props. But I picked those two.
And in the middle,
Billy James. Billy James, fastest fat hooker I've ever seen in my life. I really, for a bloke who looked like the Pillsbury Doughboy, right? You know what that is, do you? You wouldn't know the Pillsbury Doughboy because it was
it's I remember him. My old man used to speak about him.
He used to go like he was the guy who was a flower. He did flour for the mills, and the advert to selling flour on telly. And a finger would come out and he'd poke the Pillsbury Doughboy in the belly because he was fat. And Billy was the fastest hooker I've ever seen. And Morton was the dirtiest. Morton was stinking. Morton was. He was stinking. And
still speak to Morton quite regularly, like on the phone and stuff like that.
We'll give him my regards because I love Morton.
We'll do, yeah, definitely.
He used to put capsuline on his hands and then rub it in the eyes of opposing hookers and props. I'm talking about that is so rubbing chilies. It's like rubbing chilies in your eyes.
Yeah. Horrific that is. Why is he even thinking about stuff like that? Do you know what I mean? Like why?
It was a mental time. I remember. Look, this is no word of a lie. We played against I can't remember. I think it's Bridgend. Yeah, played against Bridgend, and the scrum went down, and Billy got up, Billy James, and this side of his face fell open. It fell open, wow. Right across there, and it just dropped, and it was like, did I do? And you could see everything, his teeth and his tent, and it was like, what's going on? And I'm not saying it was, obviously whoever did it, probably Jeff Davis.
Probably.
Whoever, it was like, it didn't intend to do that, but you intend, the things that happened in those days. I remember a year came off in one game. I can't remember which. Was it what? And incredible things. Incredible.
Yeah, just
it's and some. It was when the All Blacks had took somebody's scrotum. It was I think it was a French game. I played against. Listen to this one. Played against Palmy and Vakara, right, for the crochet side.
Yeah.
Chris Callaghan told me this story, because, well, not told me, reminded me. And it was just a fight fest. It was just a fight fest. Now, these guys, I don't know how Palmer was playing because he'd been banned for life for gouging, right? But it was against, I think it was Bez. Well, anyway, so we played the game. Crochets was banned for fighting. So we all went back and we went to Vakaran's bar, right? Now, Vakaran was the prop, played for France, and we'd been fighting all match. Ike Stevens. But after the game, we were in his bar, and it was called Le Cardiff, right? And he goes, "Oh, now we will play the game." See? So he says, and I'm like, we've already played the game. And he said, no. And he pulls out a gun.
Oh, wow.
Right? And he sticks a bullet in the gun. And I go, ta-da. Ta-da. So I went. Anyway. Years later, Carly said to me, he said, remember that game down in, because Chris Callaghan was playing, and I said, wow, I'd forgotten all about it, right? So he sent me a link on WhatsApp. Have a look at on Armand Vakaran.
Let me write this down. Actually, can we play it like that? I'll catch it later.
Well, I'll tell you anyway, right? Armand Vakaran, you go to Wikipedia. Armand Vakaran, French prop, born something like late 40s or early 50s, died 1993 of a gunshot wound to the head.
What, playing the game?
Playing the game. It's just, well,
it's not funny, but of course, but it's.
I think a number of them did it because there's a new book out called Brothers in Arms and I don't know if it's by a Bob Beresford, right? Now, Bob Beresford played for Aberavon, right? And he's John Bellin's brother-in-law. Right. Now then, I don't know if it's the same bloke, but he, whoever Bob Beresford wrote a book about the French team of the 80s and 90s were, and those, what I'm just talking about, Vakaran and all these other players. And a number of them had violent ends, and one of them, Cession, killed his wife, shot his wife. So there was a strange, and Spanghero, one of the Spangheros shot himself. It's like a bizarre culture, and I think it was part and parcel of that mentality. And of course, the Deer Hunter came out at that time, which was, have you seen the Deer Hunter?
No, I haven't. The
Deer Hunter is Robert De Niro film, and they play Russian roulette in that,
Okay.
It's a bit morbid. This is a bit morbid, but
you've got me. I've even forgot about what we're doing now. So I don't even know where we are.
Well, Carly's reminded me, so you can blame him. Not lately, but because I saw Carly a few years ago and he told me about it. Well, reminded me.
I'll be looking at that up for sure. All right, I can't remember where we were. I thought it was the.
Just finished the prop. We just finished the prop and okay.
Yeah. John Dick, Billy James, and Clyde Williams.
Yeah.
Yeah, happy. Okay. Second rows.
This is right. Alan Martin, Billy Mayweather.
There we go. I was going to say you can't choose yourself, so yeah, I thought.
I would myself, not with that company. I think, as regards consistency, and also Max Wilshire, Max Wilshire.
Yeah.
But as regards, Alan sometimes didn't turn up. Panther sometimes would not turn up. I don't mean not turn up physically. He wouldn't turn up mentally. And it was like, but when he did, he was truly an athlete. I mean this, and incredibly strong. Pulled the handbrake off his car once. He's just an immensely strong man. And I remember he played Bob Norster and against Cardiff, and he just switched on. When he switched on,
That was it.
he was magnificent. And then Billy, well, Billy is the funniest. He's the only bloke that leaves me speechless, because I don't think I can describe him adequately. I was in his funeral and I thought, and they all spoke about him being hard, right? They were on about this hardness, right? He was so much more than that. It was so derogatory for the man. He was warm and funny, hysterically funny. And he'd say things like, when I first, the business of holding a bloke's, you know, lovely sensitive blood, make sure to keep him. And we were down in the scrum once and leaning on, and he looked, and of course I could play either side. Now, Billy liked to play left, right? And Alan liked to play right. So I would accommodate either, right? And we were going down, and he looked across, and it was my first game. I thought he was going to tell me something incredible. So he waited for the scrum, and, you know, and he goes to me, "Do you grow tomatoes?" What is he doing? What do you grow tomatoes? And I didn't know what to say. I went, "No." Oh. And then he was just a funny man.
I love stuff like that, though. And of course, I don't know why Billy would have said that, but I would imagine it's just to relax you, you know, just to maybe take your mind. Yeah. And yes. I love stuff like that happens in my day and things like that. It's brilliant. There's a certain player now who's exactly like Billy, not playing wise, but the comments and stuff. Lou Reed.
Oh, Lou, I love Lou.
Yeah, I thought you might know Lou up there, and he would say,
I taught Lou.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, he went to school. I remember it. He was in Form 3 and he was as tall as me. Yeah, and I said to Lou, I said, "You get any taller than me, you'll have a bunch of fives." And then he came back a year later, and not a year later, six weeks later after the holidays, and he was above me. And I went, "Wow, forget about the fives, Lou. Forget about that bunch of fives."
Yeah, he's a funny guy.
Oh, he's a funny bloke.
Billy and Alan Martin in the second rows. Finally, now your back row.
I think this is the most difficult of all.
Yeah, everyone says that.
It's like, when I first went there, it was Richie, Clarkey and Ogwen who were class acts. I played with Tim Favell, Mac. There's a guy who, Mac Knowles, right?
Notes, N.
No, Knowles.
Knowles.
He's the father of, do you watch St. Helens? Watch any rugby league?
No, not much, no.
Right, there's a guy called Morgan Knowles, who's international, and is his father. And he was something else. As I said, Mike Edwards, Chris Callaghan. It's just, I find it extremely difficult. But the game, it depends which game you're going to play, but I'll probably go with a straight, I don't know if anybody would have said these, but for me, I'm going to say it's Peter Jones, right?
Peter Jones, yeah. No one said that yet.
Mike Nicholas.
I spoke to Mike, yes. Wednesday, yeah. Mike.
And Omri Jones.
Omri Jones. You heard a lot about Omri.
Right. Peter Jones it's Lynn Jones's father.
Yeah, yeah.
Ashley was playing for Aberavon as well. And Lynn played for Aberavon. But I suppose you have this. See, Omri wasn't capped. I don't think Mike was. And Peter wasn't. But when I used to see Aberavon in the early 70s or watch him on telly because it was, and it was, what a sight. What, I mean, they were a scary sight. There's people talk about Pontypool. I tell you what, they were Aberavon, and it seems like they kept that going. It's well, so come across people like. Did you ask Mike what his team was?
Well, Mike didn't want to commit to a name of the team, so he just put the 1961 team down. That's what he says. Yeah. So you're talking about.
Oh, but he remembered Tony O'Reilly and all them.
Tony O'Connor, Rory O'Connor.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm sure he mentioned Ombre. Yeah, things like that. So he was reluctant to commit, but he pretty much named the 61 team, I think, which he was a part of. So he said. I have to look back on that one because I was only.
Is he that old? Is he that old?
That's what I thought. See, so
I don't think he is.
No, I know, and that would he have had to be born in the 40s then? My maths is terrible.
You have to be born in the 40s.
Yeah, early 30s, late 30s.
It's not. Because he's early 70s, late 60s, yeah, but he's not 20 years older than me, is he?
Whilst you're there.
What's his age?
Yeah, 2 seconds. (1946). He was born.
So he's 74, 73, 74. So 46 would have put him.
56,
Well,
yes, that's. You'd have been teen, like early, 17, 18-ish. Again, my maths is terrible, so don't.
He could have played if he's that, could have. You'd have to have been something else to play in our side, menu.
Yeah, I'll check that because, like I said, I haven't edited that one yet. Anyway, all right. So, you named your back row, then didn't you? You went with
Peter Jones.
Yeah, Omri Jones.
And Mike Nicholas.
There you are. Happy days. That's the 15 done. That's a pretty impressive team. I've got 3 questions for you now, and then we'll wrap it up. First one is, what is the best memory on the field that you ever experienced for Aberavon?
It's an easy one, this, because I've never felt anything like it before or since. And it was playing against Llanelli, and who were regarded at the time as the best team in Wales. And I managed to rip a ball from a maul and run a few yards and score. And the euphoria that overtook me, and I ran back, and it was as if I was running on air. And I bowed to the crowd, which I'd never done. It was. I've never experienced anything like it, and I never did after that. It was because I scored a few tries, and not that a try makes a difference, but it was the weirdest. It was almost out the body experience. It really was a strange, and the effort of doing it was very easy. It was as if, I don't know, remember there's a thing called the inner game, and it all seemed to come to fruition at that particular point. So that's probably, yeah, that is.
Are you talking about the Aberavon Llanelli quarter-final game, or is it a different game you're talking about? The one.
It's an actual different game.
It's a different game. Okay. Yeah. Pretty extraordinary story, isn't it? As you said.
It was a weird. I'm going to say weird, but it was almost spiritual. Oh yeah.
Okay. I like that. Question 2. Who was again, you could choose either an individual or a team, okay? So who was the one team or individual that you were most apprehensive, nervous about playing against? Either a team or an individual?
John Morgan.
John Morgan, okay.
He was second off for Bridgend. He's only 6 foot, toughest bloke with Alan Davis, and a guy called Rodriguez, who was back row for France, was something else.
Just tough blokes.
Yeah.
Happy days. And the last question is, if you were to do anything different in your rugby career, what would that be?
I wouldn't have gone from Aberavon.
Oh, okay, nice. That's a nice little end, that is.
That's not decrying. That's not decrying where I went, because I loved the times from where I went. I had a lovely time at Bridgend, and I had a lovely time in Pontypridd. But it was a mistake, and sadly, it was. Funny thing was, it was a time when I thought I put my need for a cap above my happiness of where I was.
So okay, yeah. So you moved on to try and progress that.
Would happen when patience would have been the best policy for a start, I think. And not that it was inevitable. I don't mean that at all. But what I mean is that you make plans and you think this and you think that. But I adored and still do I see Les Keane as often as I can. Neil Tashara. Do you know Neil Tashara? Brian Tashara was played for Aberavon, and he was a team manager when we won an international SEMS competition in Rovigo years ago. Okay. And Brian was the team manager, and Martin Thomas played on the wing for Aberavon, and I see them regularly. And one of my favourite cycling runs is down the Avon Valley, over the Bulk, down the Avon Valley, and then looking down on the field. Fantastic times.
Yeah, good times.
Yeah.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. I genuinely mean that. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Some great stories there, and great insight to your rugby career as well.
Very much.
Perfect.